Good morning. We are on page 52, Pasuk Chaf Chet. Pasuk goes as follows. It's a continuation from last Pasuk from yesterday. Az yikranuni v'lo a'aneh, yishchanuni v'lo yimtzeuni. They will call me, but I will not answer. They will seek me early, but they will not find me. And this is actually one of the most heartbreaking Pasukim in Mishlei. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu says they will call me, but I will not answer. You know, we're used to hear that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always listening and He's always near. So what exactly does this Pasuk mean? How could it mean that how does it make sense that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not answering? The Mefarshim actually explained here something fascinating, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu never really turns away from His children. But here comes the real point, is that it's not where HaKadosh Baruch Hu stops listening, but it's where we've stopped knowing how to listen. You hear the difference? A lot of times in life, when we get to a point that we're so involved in the worldly affairs, it's hard to hear God's voice reaching out to us. We're so distant from Him, which we're the person who's distant from Him. He's not distant from us. And that it's not that He's gone. It's that, like I said, we've gone so far away from Him. Now the pasuk begins with the small word that goes as, which means then. It's not now. It's while things were calm, which means, like we were discussing yesterday, the storm then means after the storm, after the choices, after the silence that you had for yourself. And Shlomo Melech is describing that when a person who ignored HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he was close to him and only started calling out once everything collapsed. And we spoke about this yesterday. A person usually, what happens to him, his life is great, he's chilling, everything is fine, he distances himself from God. When everything falls apart, that's when he decides to get close to God. Just the opposite. It should be that he's always close to God regardless. I had a student of mine when I was like a while ago. He asked me, as a high schooler, he asked me, Rabbi, if everything is good for me, why do I have to pray? So I told him, okay, so don't pray. And I asked him, I'm like, if Lo Aleinu, someone in your family got into an accident, will you pray? He said, of course. Why wouldn't I? I said, so why are you only praying when things are good for you? Or when things are bad for you? You should pray also that things should continue being good. That's really the idea, is that a lot of times, you know, we only call out HaKadosh Baruch Hu when we're when we feel distant, but it should be just the opposite. We should call out to Him while we are connected, so that continuation, that connection could continue. The Malbim explains that the word Yikrauni, they will call me, it's not really the sincere cry of Teshuvah, but it's a desperate cry of panic. Why? Because when someone is panicking, he's just trying to get close to whatever he could get close to. And there's a difference between calling out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu of love and calling out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu of fear of God. Right here, when everything is collapsing, you're calling out from fear because you're scared that something worse is going to happen next. When life is good and we speak to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right, that builds really a relationship. But when we ignore Him until that disaster strikes, our cry is not from connection, it's out of desperation of God. And it's pretty obvious, you know, when everything is good, you build that connection. When everything is bad, you're building that desperation for God. You know, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is still listening, but it's harder for us to feel Him than when we're distant. And it's not that the pasuk is not saying that we won't hear Him, it's that it's just going to be much harder for us to hear Him. And the next word, Yishachruni, that they will seek me early, the word Yishachruni comes from the word Shachar, which is really dawn. And it means to seek eagerly, early in the morning with effort. That these people who are searching for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you know, they're waking up early, they're crying, they're praying, but it feels like HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hidden, because real seeking isn't something you turn on only when you need results. It's really the daily avodah within yourself and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not just when you need a God. And you can't ignore HaKadosh Baruch Hu for years and then just suddenly expect your heart to open up and come close to Him, because it doesn't work like that. It's a relationship. Our relationship with God is a daily thing. Every single day is a moment to get closer. And just to know that the door isn't locked, it's just that we forgot where the door is when we're trying to find it. And our rabbis explain this pasuk actually to the generation of Noach. Why HaKadosh Baruch Hu warned them for 120 years through Noach's words, through the signs that he gave him, and through the patience that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave. But all of them, they laughed it off, right? They all laughed off whatever was going on in Noach. We read it last week, and they mocked Noach. And then, as the pasuk says, the word as, when the rain started to fall and the waters began to rise, what happened? They came banging on the door of the teva. Noach didn't let them in. Noach couldn't open it anymore. Why? Not because he was cruel or anything. It's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mercy then closed. He gave them 120 years and decided not to. Boom, it was closed. They didn't call when HaKadosh Baruch Hu was reaching to them. They only called when they were drowning. In our life, we have to understand that, like I said before, we should not only call HaKadosh Baruch Hu when we're drowning. We should call Him even when we're swimming, right? It gets so, life gets tough and the tide gets us. But, it's so, especially in a world like today, business and this and that. I was learning with someone yesterday. He was telling me how something's going on in his business, and he decided to speak to God, more. I'm like, were you speaking to God before? It was not really. I'm saying, so why are you only speaking to God now when things are bad? Speak to God every single day. You should continue the growth that you had. That's really the idea. We shouldn't just call out HaKadosh Baruch Hu when things are bad. We should have that relationship out of love, not out of fear, out of desperation for God. And the pasuk says when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is close, that's the pasuk. And there's a pasuk actually in Yeshaya that explains this very nice. The pasuk says, "Dirshu Adonai behimatzeo keru be'oto karov." That seek HaKadosh Baruch Hu while He is found, call Him while He is near. It means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is really always present, but there are moments in life when He's especially close. Moments of when HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you clarity, moments when something, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives something to you that touches your heart, moments when we feel inspired and when we feel moved, when we feel emotional. That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying that I'm here right now with you and talk to me, come close to me. If we push that off, that window really closes, not because He walked away, but because we walked past that moment that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. We have this all the time. You go to a class, you feel inspired, you come back home, you go back to your old self. Why? Because you missed that inspiration. You let it come in one ear and come out the other. But the idea is the second you hear that inspiration, take upon yourself one thing that could better your day. We all know this feeling in smaller ways. When we hurt someone that we love, or that when we stop, and when they stop answering when we speak to them, it's not because they hate us. It's because they've been trying so long and we just didn't listen. And that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's silence is like that. It's a silence of heartbreak, not of anger. It's the space He creates so we can feel the weight of what we did, right? Something that we did, that builds a connection. You get into a fight with your wife, you feel a little distant, but it's not that she doesn't like you or doesn't love you, just that it got a little distant. But again, once you do teshuvah, it comes, once you ask her for forgiveness, you have to build that relationship again. So Shlomo Melech is saying here that a lot of times when you miss that, you're not distancing your relationship. It's just that it's harder for you to see that relationship, right? But even in this pasuk, even though we're talking about this, there's hope in this pasuk. Why? Because if you're reading it and you're thinking about it, you could tell that you're hearing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's voice here is calling before the storm ends. Right? We were discussing yesterday that storm. Remember, you were discussing that storm that comes. Before the silence really sets in, that means that the door is always open. And the Zohar explains that if a person remembers HaKadosh Baruch Hu even once in truth, their remembrance never dies within him. So it's always close with him. And every sincere whisper to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and every a tear that we shed, and every attempt to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that really reaches HaKadosh Baruch Hu regardless. We might not see it, but it really does. And the practical idea from here is that even small moments of your day of connection can go a long way. You might not see it, but it goes a long way. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying that He's not saying here that I won't answer. He's just saying, don't wait until you're desperate to call me. Call me every single day, right? If you build a relationship when life is quiet, what happens? He says, I'll be with you when life gets loud. If you talk to me when you're in peace, I'll be with you when you're in pain. And if you call me when I am near, you always find me regardless.
Where does it say that?
That's how we learn at this pasuk. Because again, if he's saying that if you're only calling me when you don't feel close, obvious, and I'm still there, it's just harder for you to find me. Obviously, when you call me when you're near, I would want to be close with you when you're far. You hear the idea? Because that's the relationship. It's people try to think that God's relationship with us is not transactional. We're here because He loves us and He wants us to do the best we can be. And how does that work? We have to give Him and He gives us back. Not on a transactional, but out of love. I'll give you an example. A parent, the more a child respects the parent and does for the parent, the more that the parent will want to give to the child, not because it's a transaction, but because it builds more love. Right? With my son, he'll cry. He always cries for a special yogurt. And if he misbehaves, I don't want to give it to him, not because I don't love him. It just he doesn't deserve it. But if he's nice, not nice, but if he behaves the whole day, of course I'm gonna give him that yogurt. Not transactional, because I love him. He deserves it more. That's what the idea. The idea is, at the end of the day, is that we should always call it Hakadosh Baruch Hu, regardless of our situations in life. And then not only when we're happy, God will be with us, but also when we're in pain, God will be with us even more, because He shows that our relationship is real with Him and not just transactional. Have a great day.